The stars fell on Montana the night everything changed. People in small towns watched the meteor streak across the sky, trailing flame and smoke like a wrathful god's spear. It struck the woods just west of Clearwater Ridge with a soundless thud, sending a tremor through the ground that rattled dishes and startled cattle in barns miles away. Sheriff Wyatt Keller was already awake when the call came in. Sipping bitter coffee and flipping through an old photo album he barely remembered pulling from the attic. He answered with a tired "yeah," and listened in silence to the voice on the other end. Crashed object. Maybe a plane. Bright as hell. Not far from Old Man Harlan's property. Wyatt slid on his boots, shrugged into his coat, and holstered the revolver he hadn't used in months. His cruiser's headlights cut through the thick morning fog as he drove north. The sky had a sickly tint to it, like bruised fruit, and the birds were silent. He tried not to think too hard about that. By the time he reached the crash site, the air smelled scorched. Pines stood blackened in a circle, their needles crisped and falling like ash. A shallow crater steamed in the center, and Wyatt squinted into the heat distortion. Something unnatural gleamed at the bottom. Twisted metal, glassy rock, and a strange membrane that pulsed like a living thing. Harlan's dog, a Labrador named Ranger, was the first to find the pod. Curious and fearless, he darted into the crater before Wyatt could shout a warning. The membrane quivered, cracked. Something small and spider-like burst free and latched onto Ranger's face. The dog thrashed wildly, yelping, then collapsed with a whimper. Wyatt stood frozen. The thing clinging to Ranger's head was wrong. Bony fingers wrapped tight around the snout, tail coiled under the jaw. No eyes, no mouth, just relentless grip. He backed away, fumbling for his radio. Static answered him. That was the beginning. By the end of the week, half the town's wildlife had disappeared. Hikers reported strange carcasses in the woods. Deer with ruptured chests, birds with open rib cages, coyotes with wounds that looked like something clawed its way out. One man, drunk and panicked, staggered into the sheriff's office claiming he saw a bear-sized creature with a long tail and no eyes, moving faster than anything had a right to. Sheriff Keller tried contacting the state. Phones were down. Internet too. Something jammed the signals around Clearwater Ridge. He didn't know it yet, but the crash had disrupted more than the terrain. The organisms in the pod, the facehuggers, had released spores into the air, invisible and insidious. They didn't need to find hosts. Hosts would find them. The first human to fall was Ellie Graham, a high school biology teacher who lived alone with her cats. She'd gone out searching for Ranger, the missing Labrador, whom she'd often watched while Harlan ran errands. Neighbors said they heard screaming that night. When Ellie didn't show up for work the next morning, a search party formed. They found her in her backyard, face down. Alive, but something was attached to her face. Hospital staff panicked. They tried removing the creature, but it had fused itself to her skin. Tubes pulsed into her throat. Every attempt to cut it off caused violent spasms. Then Ellie's vitals stabilized, and after a few hours, the creature simply detached and slithered away, dying a few feet from the gurney. Ellie woke up confused, drowsy. She had no memory of the past day. Doctors kept her under observation. Then, 20 hours after the creature detached, she convulsed violently. Her chest bulged, split. Something tore its way out of her ribcage with a screech and bolted out of the room before anyone could stop it. That night, the hospital burned. Wyatt watched it from a ridge, binoculars shaking in his hands. Something leapt from the second-story window as flames licked the sky. A lean, black form with two long limbs and a tail like a whip. He didn't understand what it was, only that it had come from Ellie. And there were more. The creatures adapted quickly. Whatever species they infected, dog, deer, raccoon, even a mountain lion. They created twisted versions of themselves, bipedal horrors with sleek armor-like skin and acidic blood. A bear-hosted version rampaged through a logging camp near Cascade Creek. Its massive frame took 6 shotgun blasts before it fell, acid melting 2 men who stood too close. Wyatt knew they were losing. He turned to Riley, a former Marine who ran the local survivalist shop. They started gathering anyone who could shoot, fortify, or drive. Generators were rigged, outposts made, but ammo ran low, and every night brought new screams from the forest. Then came the hive. Deep in a cave system beneath the crash site, the creatures built a nest. Victims were dragged there alive. The creatures didn't just kill, they reproduced. Hosts were cocooned. Eggs laid near them. Facehuggers hatched and began the cycle again. A rescue helicopter finally arrived, drawn by one of Riley's flare beacons. It hovered over the town square, side doors open, medics shouting. People ran to it, screamed, pushed. Then a creature launched from the roof of a diner and tackled a soldier midair. They plummeted together. The helicopter pulled up sharply, but it was too late. Dozens of creatures swarmed the street. Only a few got out. Wyatt wasn't one of them. He led a last stand in the school gym, walls reinforced with steel tables and barbed wire. Dozens of survivors huddled inside. They had a generator, some fuel, and a plan. They'd discovered that the creatures avoided fire and hated certain frequencies. Riley had wired up old speakers to blast high-pitched tones that kept the beasts at bay. But nothing lasted. The generator sputtered. Sound cut out. The gym doors buckled under the force of something massive, twice the size of the bear mutant. It charged in, tail swinging, inner jaw snapping like a piston. Bullets slowed it, but acid blood sprayed everywhere. Wyatt fought till the end. He stabbed one of the creatures in the throat, point blank, then tossed a Molotov at the advancing wave. Fire consumed the room. Screams echoed. And still the creatures didn't stop. Far away in the Pentagon, satellite feeds went dark over Montana. Drones sent in for reconnaissance vanished. A military general, stone-faced, authorized containment. An airstrike was launched. The sky over Clearwater Ridge glowed orange again. But this time, it wasn't from a meteor. In the smoldering crater, beneath layers of ash and melted forest, something moved. An egg, shielded in stone, pulsed gently, and hatched. Facehugger, Earthfall had only begun.